Alright, I haven't made a video and uploaded a video to YouTube in a long time, but your White Lion video got me fired up. Josh Snook told me your name a long time ago, and I'm sorry, I don't remember what it is, other than your channel is called Music in a Bottle, which I think is great. I'm a big Police fan, and whether that's a reference to the Police or not, I still appreciate the title of your video or your channel. The reason I'm responding to your video with a video of my own is because I couldn't. I wanted to type a comment under your video, but there was just I couldn't. There was too much to say. White Lion has been one of my favorites since at least 1990, if not a little earlier than that. I think Wait hit MTV and the airwaves and the radio waves 87, 88. I think I was in 7th grade the first time I heard Wait and saw the video, and everybody really loved White Lion at that point. I remember that. I wasn't on board quite yet, but by the time 1990 came around and Big Game had come out, I was on board at that point. A friend of mine who's actually now the singer in my band, he's a couple years older than me, maybe 2 or 3, 4 years older than I can't remember. But I remember seeing his picture in the high school yearbook when I was a freshman and maybe he was a junior, I don't know. But he had long hair. He was a singer in a band back then. And I remember one of the pictures, he had a White Lion t-shirt on. I was like, that's cool. I don't know why. I remember that really set me off on wanting to get into White Lion. I had heard all the stuff off Pride that got onto the radio, and it was all great. Everybody loved White Lion for at least 2 years. But when Big Game came out, for some reason, they just fell out of favor with the listening public, and I didn't understand it. I remember getting into some arguments with some of my band friends, like high school band friends around 1990, because it was the time that like Warrant was getting big at that time. They came out shortly after White Lion's Pride album had done so well. And I think Warrant came out shortly after that, and a couple other bands right at that spot just before grunge hit. But Warrant's album had come out. I don't know if it was their first album or their second album. It came out around the same time as Big Game. And like I said, I saw the photo in the yearbook of my singer friend, and for some reason I got turned on to White Lion. I went out and I bought on cassette. I bought Pride and Big Game shortly after Big Game came out, and I spent that summer like mowing lawns with headphones on, listening to those albums over and over. I listened to them a lot that summer, and I remember just being so excited about them because I loved those albums so much, and especially Big Game. I especially loved Big Game, and I was a drummer. I'm a drummer, and probably one of the things that sold me was the Radar Love cover and the little mini drum solo in there. And back then I used to like Mustang cars, older classic Mustang cars, and if you ever get a chance to watch the Radar Love video, it's a great video. They put a lot of money into that, make the production of that video. It's really high class video. And one of the cars in it is like a 1971, 72, I think Mustang, muscle car, and there's a car chase scene with it, and it's pretty sweet. But between the drum solo, the Mustang, my buddy wearing the shirt in the high school yearbook photo, and I don't know what all else, but I became a White Lion fan real quick, and I remember around 1990, they never got back into favor with the public out with their second album, actually their third album, Big Game's their third album technically. Their first album, Fight to Survive, which nobody really knows about, and then what was it? Pride, first big breakthrough, but then Big Game just did not fall well. Like Little Fighter did pretty good. They had a pretty decent music video for that. I believe that was the very first single released. And then they did the video for, I believe, Radar Love. And that seemed to do okay. It got played quite a bit on MTV for a short amount of time. But there was just so much other stuff that came out around that same time and just kind of, I think it just got overshadowed. And I don't think people were as enamored with the high musicianship of White Lion. Bands like Poison, who aren't bad musicians, just they were more flashy, more catchy. Warrant, like I said, more flashy, more catchy. Not bad musicians at all. But you know, those bands just, they had the look, they had the catchy choruses, and the flash, you know. And White Lion, I guess they just didn't quite have the sex appeal maybe that some of these other bands had. So they just didn't. They never made it back on their feet after the big success of Pride. And by the time their fourth album came out, Main Attraction, which is a great album as well, it's got a few kind of stinkers on it. And I wouldn't even call them stinkers, just some of them are not quite up to snuff, but still good. But there's some really great material on there. But yeah, White Lion never really got back on their feet, I guess, after the initial huge success of Pride and Wait and Tell Me, and of course When the Children Cry. Tell Me is probably my favorite song on that album. I think Going Home Tonight maybe on Big Game is my favorite song. Baby Be Mine maybe. I don't know. It's hard to choose a favorite off of that one. I can just, all their albums I can listen to from start to finish. That's one of my favorite things about a band, is if I can just put on an album and let it play out, which is very rare. For me, it's very rare to find something like that. Van Halen was always one of my first loves. Before that was Def Leppard. And you know, I like a bunch of other things like Rush and Dream Theater. Since I was a drummer, I really got into like the progressive drummers like Neil Peart and Mike Portnoy from Dream Theater. But Greg D'Angelo from White Lion, he's no slouch. He's quite a good drummer. And like the comparisons to Van Halen don't just stop with Vito Bratta and his guitar playing. Greg D'Angelo, he plays Ludwig drums like Alex Van Halen and Paiste cymbals like Alex Van Halen. It's very hard to find any information on White Lion because people weren't as excited about them. But I mean, if you dig on YouTube, you can find some interviews, and there's a pretty cool documentary called, I think, Escape from Brooklyn, maybe. But Greg D'Angelo was a really good drummer. So, I mean, there was the little drum solo in Radar Love, which I was enamored with, and played in cover bands for years after I was in high school. And anytime I could get one of the bands I was in to play that song, we did, because I loved it. But oh yeah, as far as the comparisons between White Lion and Van Halen go, obviously there's Vito. Greg D'Angelo has, you know, some similarities with Alex Van Halen, but Mike Tramp, he openly says that he was in the early 80s hoping to be the next David Lee Roth. As a matter of fact, he worked for either a music magazine or a music promoter in Spain when Van Halen came to Spain for, I think, the Fair Warning tour in 1981-ish. And Mike Tramp was asked by the company he worked for to pick up Van Halen at the airport in a limo and take care of him while they were in Spain for a week or whatever. And so he got to hang out with him before he was even in White Lion. And he's made no qualms about he thought he was going to be the next David Lee Roth back then. So there's lots of comparisons to be made between the two bands. But anyway, as you can see, this is why I couldn't type a response to your video, a comment. So, and I haven't even touched on like the songs individually and stuff like that. That while you were talking about each song, I had stuff to say about each one. But yeah, you got me geeked out a little bit. It's hard to find a White Lion fan, although they are out there. You dig around on YouTube. I don't know if you are aware of Eddie Trunk. He does like a radio show or something. He's done for years, and he interviews musicians. And he had Vito Bratta on a couple years ago, and people were calling in and wanting to tell Vito how much they loved him and missed him. And Vito can't play anymore. He hurt his wrist or something. He had an accident, so he can't even play guitar really anymore, and doesn't really plan on trying to, I guess. But yeah, it's hard to find a White Lion fan, even though they're out there and they're very intense when you come across them, and information is hard to come by on White Lion. But if you search around YouTube, you can find some stuff. But anyway, yeah, that's what I wanted to do. Thanks for checking that out on my suggestion. I really felt with all of your favorite albums that and bands, I thought, you got a lot of similar tastes. So I wonder if he knows about White Lion. So thanks for checking them out and getting me all fired up enough to actually make a video again and put it on YouTube. Take care, man.